What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka New York Prepper. It is Thursday, July 15th, 2021, and I wanted to talk to you guys about the Congressional UFO Report. And I wanted to just summarize some of the things that are in this report. So, a few weeks ago, I mentioned that we were waiting on this Congressional UFO Report to come out, and I mentioned that I would analyze it and make a video on it when it came out. So that's what I'm doing here. Um, However, this video, I'm just going to quickly summarize the findings from this report, and I'm not going to really spend a lot of time going into the details. The report itself was just a preliminary summary. So, because it's just a preliminary summary, there's really not much detail in it. And I'm going to leave a link in the description box below the video if you want to read this Congressional UFO report for yourself. It's only about 8 or 9 pages. But if you don't feel like reading the whole thing, you can just listen to my video and I'll summarize the key points from this report. But I definitely do recommend to read this report for yourself because there's a lot more details in it. But it is just a preliminary summary. So I was expecting this report to be like a really detailed report where they were going to share specific sightings that they had and incidents, and they were going to reveal some kind of juicy details, but they're not going to do that, I don't think. I mean, it's possible they may do that in the future. But this report, they didn't reveal anything like that. However, there was some pretty bombshell revelations in this report. And basically what that is that the U.S. government is now finally admitting that UAPs are real, and they're not just, denying all these sightings that people have been having for the last 50 years or 100 years. People have been seeing weird objects flying in the sky that are traveling at incredible speeds and doing weird things that normal planes don't do. And so the government and the military is finally coming out to the public and admitting that these things are real and they don't know what they are. And that's basically the biggest takeaway from this report. There are some other interesting things that they state in the report, but the biggest thing that you need to know is that in this report, the U.S. government and the directors of national intelligence and the DOD, the U.S. military, the U.S. government is basically admitting that UAPs are real, and UAP is just another word for UFO. UAP stands for unidentified aerial phenomenon, which is the word that they use for UFO. Okay. I think they just created that word to eliminate the stigma associated with UFO. So UAP is what they call it, but they're basically saying that UAPs are real and they don't know what they are. They're not saying that they're definitely alien or definitely extraterrestrial. And they're not saying that they're not, so everything is open at this point, and that's the big bombshell with this report is that the military is finally saying that, it is possible that these UAPs could be aliens, they are also saying that they could even be foreign military assets, and let's say Russia or China possibly could be testing some kind of new technologies. That's another thing that they mention in this report, but they aren't ruling out the possibility that these could be extraterrestrial. Okay. So that's the big takeaway here. And the fact that they're making this public now is very interesting. Now, obviously, we've had so many credible sightings and incidents over the last 50 years, and the military has denied it for so long. And now all of a sudden they're finally admitting it. And, it's very interesting. I personally believe that the military and the U.S. government and also the Russian government, the Chinese government, all the superpowers of the world, in my opinion, have knowledge and data about these UAPs that they're not sharing with us, and the reason why is obviously for number one, national security reasons. If, for example, let's say the United States has some kind of juicy details about UFOs, let's say the United States recovered a UFO that crashed, like Roswell, for instance, or Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. Let's say they recovered these alien craft, and they're in possession of them, and they have even recovered maybe alien bodies. They don't want to tell the world that, because if they tell the world that, then they're kind of showing their cards. So they want to keep it all a secret because they don't know what Russia has, they don't know what China has. And same thing with Russia and China. They're not going to go out there and say all these details. So they're going to keep it vague, like they're doing with this report. They're just kind of vaguely saying, oh, yeah, it's possible that these could be alien. But I mean, let's be honest, guys. Roswell, that happened like 50 years ago, and that was a pretty credible situation there. Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, also pretty credible. And an alien craft crash landed in a small town in western Pennsylvania, and local residents were able to see this alien craft, and it had weird writing on it. And within a few hours, the area was secured by U.S. military police, and the the crashed object was taken out on a flatbed truck. And dozens and dozens of people reported seeing that. So, and there's been many cases like that. I mean, you could spend a whole lifetime just talking about UFO incidents and sightings, but so I personally believe that our government and our military, the U.S. military, U.S. government, has a lot more information than what they're saying here. We know that the military and the government are always many decades ahead in terms of technology and what they know. For example, the U.S. military operated stealth bombers and stealth planes for many, many decades during the Cold War before they actually came out publicly and admitted to the world that they had stealth technology where they could hide from radar. And they had to do that on purpose because they didn't want Russia or China to know that we had that capability, that we could hide from radar with our planes. And the biggest secret that they kept was the SR-71 Blackbird, which, the SR-71 Blackbird was kept secret for 40 years. The U.S. government didn't admit that the SR-71 was actually even a plane until the early 90s. So the SR-71 Blackbird was operating from the 1950s all the way until 1990. That's 40 years through the entire Cold War. The SR-71 Blackbird was flying reconnaissance missions over the Soviet Union frequently, and everybody was kept in the dark about it until 40 years later. So, I mean, if they're keeping that kind of technology a secret, imagine if they did recover alien craft or alien bodies or had some other kind of information or data about aliens, how they're going to keep that secret. But this is a huge thing, the fact that they're admitting that UAPs could possibly be terrestrial, that extraterrestrial. That's huge. So now I know a lot of you guys don't believe that aliens are real, and you believe that these are fallen angels. And me personally, I'm not, 100% convinced that aliens are real. I'm not 100% convinced in anything when it comes to aliens. I don't know if they're demons. I don't know if Project Bluebeam is real. I don't know if aliens are real. I don't know. But I am open-minded, okay? And I think until we have something solid in front of us, we have to keep ourselves open-minded to different possibilities. We can't just dismiss different things until we know for certain one way or the other. So I'm open-minded to different theories about what these UAP are and what aliens are and stuff like that. So without further delay, I just want to summarize the key findings of this summary here. So again, it was just a preliminary summary, and it was provided by the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, which is the head honcho of all the intelligence agencies in the U.S. government. So the CIA, the NSA, any of those other three-letter intelligence agencies, they all report to the ODNI, and the ODNI is basically the head honcho. So the report was provided by the ODNI and the Department of Defense, or the DoD, to Congress, and it didn't go into any specific details, like I mentioned. It was just a preliminary summary, and the report was created and it was mandated by the budget that was passed in 2020. And one of the conditions of the budget, when Congress passed the budget for the intelligence agencies, which is known as the Intelligence Authorization Act. So every year, the federal government, they need a budget to continue to operate. And same thing with the intelligence agencies, even though they are super secret and they do things secretively, they have to ask Congress for money. And every year, Congress has to approve, how much money they're going to give them and so forth. So one of the stipulations of the intelligence budget last year was that Congress demanded a report on UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon. And so that's why they had to provide this report. And the stipulation was that they had to provide a summary and an analysis of UAPs to Congress within 1 year of passing the budget. Okay. And the budget passed, I think it was like July 1st or something last year in 2020. So that's why the report was delivered a month ago, right before the deadline, basically. Okay. So that's why we had this report come out. So again, UAP is just another word for UFO, and it stands for unidentified aerial phenomenon. So like I said earlier, the report basically just says that the government doesn't know what UAPs are, but they are admitting that there's definitely something going on that's not normal, and that they want to investigate it further. And they're actually considering UFOs or UAPs to be a risk to national security, or not a risk, but a threat. They're considering them now as a threat to national security. And the reason why is because a lot of the UAPs are being seen around military installations and flying close to military aircraft. And there's also even been some near collisions that occurred between different types of aircraft and UAPs. Now, the report doesn't say if they were civilian aircraft or military aircraft, but the report does say that there were at least 11 reports of documented instances in which pilots reported near misses with a UAP. So that's 11 is a good amount. So they are considering UAPs a possible threat to national security, and that's why they want to investigate them further and see what they are. Now, they're not ruling out the possibility that they could be extraterrestrials, but they're not confirming one way or the other. And when they created this report, they used data from November 2004 until March 2021. So 15 years of data. And there were 144 reports during that time period that they analyzed, and they were all from U.S. government sources. Out of 144 reports that they analyzed, 80 of them involved observation with multiple sensors. So what that means is that they were tracking these UFOs with multiple different radars from maybe multiple different branches of the military were tracking the same UFO maybe the Air Force and the Navy and the Coast Guard, they could have all had their radars, trained on this one UFO. So they're saying out of 144 reports, 80 of them involved observation with multiple sensors. Okay. And that always, when you have more than one sensor, it always increases the credibility, obviously, because you have more accuracy and more information. And most of the reports described UAPs as objects that interrupted pre-planned training or other military activities. So that's pretty interesting, and that's why the military is so concerned about it, because they don't know why are these things so interested in military training and military bases. Is it because they're foreign governments and those UAPs are maybe some kind of a foreign technology? Or are they aliens and the aliens are interested in our military capabilities and they're scouting out and doing recon on our military capabilities for whatever reason? Either they're trying to see if we're a threat to them, or if they want to see, if they're more advanced than we are, they want to, do some reconnaissance on us. But the military is concerned about that, and that's the reason why they're considering them a threat to national security. Now, another thing that the report mentions is that the reason why there's another possibility why there's so many reports of UAP near military bases and military training is because that happens to be those happen to be areas where there's a lot of radars and different sensors that they can pick up UAPs with, versus in civilian areas, you generally only have radars from air traffic control towers, but when there's like a military base or military training, they have so many different radars pointed in every direction. So that could be why they're picking it up around military bases. But again, guys, this could all just be, one big lie. And they could just be feeding us this BS because they already know that aliens are real. And they just want to kind of give us like a little bit, to keep us satisfied, give us some crumbs. But they may already have recovered alien craft and they may even have already reverse engineered alien technology. I mean, if you have ever heard of Bob Lazar, Bob Lazar was a contractor that worked for Area 51. And he said that, when he worked there, his job was to try to reverse engineer alien technology and stuff and figure out how the alien spaceships worked and stuff like that. I don't know if I fully believe his story. Again, I'm 50-50 on that, but there's been a lot of reports out there of different things like that. We also had Dwight Eisenhower's granddaughter. She claims that Dwight Eisenhower had some kind of a treaty with different aliens from other solar systems, and they had like a peace treaty with different aliens, and that's why Dwight Eisenhower was very concerned about the military-industrial complex. But you can check her out; she's talked about it extensively. So, I mean, this could all just be BS, but nonetheless, I'm going to continue with the key findings here. So the military and the government are saying that UAPs lack a single explanation, and they're going to start categorizing UAP into 5 different buckets. The first one is airborne clutter, which could be birds, balloons, recreational unmanned aerial vehicles, airborne debris like plastic bags. Another one is natural atmospheric phenomenon, which includes ice crystals, moisture, and thermal fluctuations that could register on infrared and radar systems. Another one is industrial development programs, which could possibly be classified programs by U.S. military or U.S. government agencies. So the military may not be aware that other agencies within the military or the government are testing some kind of experimental technology, and they're not aware of that. Another option is that they could be foreign adversary systems, and so they're saying that they could possibly be technologies deployed by China, Russia, or some other country. And then finally, the last bucket is the other bucket, which they say is basically anything else besides foreign adversaries, industrial development, atmospheric phenomenon, and airborne clutter. And the other would be the one that would include aliens and extraterrestrials. So I'm going to read exactly what they wrote here. They wrote, although most of the UAP described in our data set probably remain unidentified due to limited data or challenges to collection, processing, or analysis, we may require additional scientific knowledge to successfully collect on, analyze, and characterize some of them. We would group such objects in this category pending scientific advances that allow us to better understand them. So another thing with this report is that they the government is saying that they're going to focus additional analysis on a small number of cases where UAPs appeared to display unusual flight characteristics or signature management. So the government is specifically interested in the UAPs that are acting weird and flying very strangely, and those are the ones they're specifically interested in. And the report stated also that UAPs appear to demonstrate advanced technology in 18 incidents described in 21 reports, and observers reported unusual UAP movement patterns or flight characteristics. Some UAP appeared to remain stationary in winds aloft, move against the wind, maneuver abruptly, or move at considerable speed without discernible means of propulsion. So, this report is basically saying that some of these UAPs are using some kind of technology that they have no idea what it is, and they're basically defying the laws of physics. That's what the report is saying. So the government is very interested in this, for obvious reasons. But thinking about unusual flight characteristics, we can think about Commander David Fravor. And if you guys don't know who he is, he was the U.S. Air Force pilot that was basically chasing a UAP off the coast of San Diego during a training mission with his F-15. And he's a very experienced fighter pilot, and he had a squadron of younger fighter pilots that he was training with, and he was dispatched to basically investigate this UAP that was hanging around an aircraft carrier strike group for like 2 weeks, which it also happened to be the USS Nimitz strike group. So he went to investigate, and he chased this thing with his plane, and he said that it was able to just disappear and cover 60 miles within a matter of seconds. So I recommend you guys look him up. And he did an interview on Joe Rogan, like a 3-hour interview where he went in detail about his dogfight, if you will. I don't think it was an actual dogfight, but he basically was chasing this UFO, and then the UFO started chasing him, and then the UFO just disappeared. And he talks about it in his interview with Joe Rogan. I'll actually put a link in the description box for you guys to that Joe Rogan interview. So this report is basically admitting that many of these UFOs can maneuver against the wind and remain aloft, move at considerable speeds with no discernible means of propulsion. So the report also says that there were patterns with UAPs, and I'll read to you guys specifically what it says. It says that patterns do emerge. There was wide variability in the reports, and the data set is currently too limited to allow for detailed trend or pattern analysis. However, there was some clustering of UAP observations regarding shape, size, and particularly propulsion. UAP sightings also tended to cluster around U.S. training and testing grounds, but we assess that this may result from a collection bias as a result of focused attention, greater numbers of latest generation sensors operating in those areas. So again, guys, just like I mentioned, they tend to cluster around the military areas, but it does seem like there is some pattern emerging of shape, size, and especially propulsion. And, people have reported for many, many years of seeing UFOs in the Southwest, particularly around Nevada, Arizona, and Utah, because those states have a lot of military bases. Utah has the Dugway Proving Grounds. The Nevada has the Nellis Air Force Range, which is huge. It's like over 100 miles, across, maybe even bigger. I don't know. Then you obviously have Area 51 in Nevada, and people have reported seeing UFOs in these areas for many years. So now the military is admitting that these UAPs tend to cluster around these testing grounds. And, I don't know if these are aliens. They're obviously trying to see what kind of technology we have, what kind of weapons technology we have. So finally, the report concludes by saying that explaining UAPs will require analytic collection and resource investment, and standardize the reporting, consolidate the data, and deepen the analysis. So that's pretty much it, guys. That's the Congressional UFO Report in a nutshell. So I may do future videos where I do a more detailed breakdown of it. But if you want to read it for yourself, I'll leave a link in the description box down below. And I'll also leave a link to that interview with Commander David Fravor on the Joe Rogan show. I highly recommend you watch that. Now, this guy, David Fravor, he is a little bit, he likes to talk a lot. So there are some moments on that interview that are a little bit slow. But it's definitely worth, watching. And he's a very credible witness. And, he's a career Air Force pilot, fighter jet pilot. And they don't let crazy people fly those fighter jets because they're very expensive. So if this guy was just some crazy UFO conspiracy theorist, chances are they wouldn't be giving him multi-million-dollar equipment to fly for, 30 years. So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm going to continue to report on all things UFO and alien related. I have some other UFO videos that I plan to do in the coming weeks and months. So stay tuned to my channel for more updates on anything UFO related. And that's all I got for now. So thanks for watching. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.